Cannabis is changing fast, so you don't have time to waste. MJ BizCon gives you the tools and connections you need to survive and thrive in 2023 and beyond. Join us in Vegas, November 15th through the 18th. You'll find 35,000 power players in cannabis, 1,400 vendors who will fuel your growth, and fact-based insights on election results, growth projections, regulatory reform, and business management. It's your one real shot to gain a competitive edge in cannabis, so get your tickets today at mjbizcon.com and get 10% off with the promo code PODCAST. If you're like a lot of the cannabis executives that I talk to, then you know the struggle. Finding the right talent in the cannabis industry is not easy. Hiring in the cannabis industry is complicated, and the traditional job boards aren't going to tell you everything you need to know about the candidate. Are they badged? Are they reliable? Do they really know their stuff? That's why leaders at the top cannabis companies turn to Vanks. Vanks provides all the tools you need to make the right cannabis hires from one central intuitive dashboard. So whether you're looking for on-demand temporary employees or seasoned executives, Vanks is your one-stop shop to find qualified, ready-to-go workers that are the right fit for your company. So visit Vanks.com, that's VANGST.com, to learn more about Vanks gigs, vetted, and marketplace products, and find out why they're proud to work in cannabis.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome again to a Friday afternoon edition of Green Rush Live. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and sometimes regular host of this program. We've been doing this program on Friday afternoons from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time for the last 3 years. And we've had some incredible shows, incredible guests. And this particular one that's upcoming is definitely going to, I don't know if it's going to raise the bar, but it's certainly going to get to that bar. And I'm not talking about the bar in your neighborhood town. I'm talking about a level of expertise and entertainment and educational content. This week, I can tell you that my regular guest host, Josh Kincaid from The Talking Hedge, and also our Washington State correspondent from We Talk News, will be joining me alongside as the guest host. Hello, Josh.
Hello, Jimmy.
Good to talk with you. Good to see you. And we're so happy to have Jeanne Sullivan with us. She is with Arcview. Arcview is involved with a major investment conference this coming week in New York City. It's called Live in NYC. Jeanne Sullivan, thank you so much for joining us here on Green Rush Live.
Thank you, Jimmy and Josh. Hey, listen, this is big news because do you know when the last live Arcview event was? I was there. February 2020, Santa Monica. So we are thrilled that we're back. This is the first time. And here's the other thing I'm so proud of. That event was my 22nd Arcview event because I've been on the team for that many years, curating, trying to make it happen on stage, having a ball, and a one way to get to know the business and get to know the fabulous people in our business.
It is remarkable, isn't it? I spent 3 days at a conference this past weekend, and I so enjoy the camaraderie, collaboration, and the passion that pretty much anybody who's in this business as an entrepreneur, as an investor, or a regular business person, we all share that passion for this. We realize we're all part of history. Am I right, Jeanne?
Totally. It is a real hallmark of our cannabis sector, a real collegiality that exists, and we really seek that. And something else we seek, we want to have more women and diverse people as part of the business. Oh, look, I'm a longtime tech investor, and we want to make a difference because that isn't what happened in the tech world. So we're really trying hard to promote that.
Yeah. Hey, we are supposed to be getting one of the co-founders of Arcview. Troy Gayton has been invited onto this show, and I'm sure the many staffers that I have on my team are out trying to connect with him and get him the right link as well, just in case he might be on. I believe he's on Pacific time. Am I right, Jeanne?
That's right.
Yeah, Josh, you're on Pacific time, right?
I'm in New York City.
That's
and,
right.
That's
what we like to do here is we connect both coasts. This is what I like. And I think Arcview has a history of that too, because it was started by Troy and Steve D'Angelo, right?
two incredible pioneers. I'm very hopeful that Troy jumps on. He's a wonderful guy. And you know what? Here's the thing. They didn't even start it for what it ended up to be. They started because they were appalled at the terrible social justice infractions, people going to jail, and by the way, 12 years later, they're still going to jail. But luckily, that is somewhat curbed. But they started it to help fight the fact that people were being incarcerated just for the plant. And then it morphed and they became the go-to community where investors would meet entrepreneurs. And here's the cool thing that's so amazing. That community, and I was there for many, many years of these last 12 years in those meetings, in these events, that community of members invested $300 million in just about every cannabis company there is. And so that's how really Arcview built that community, and really we're the only game in town. And this happened just very serendipitously because people love to get together, back to what you were saying, being collegial, being supportive of each other, sharing deal flow, sharing ideas. And that's what created Arcview and the vibrancy. So here we are again, recreating that connection.
And there's been a few developments, let's just say, since the last live Arcview webinar, conference, investment group, however you want to call this event coming up in New York City. The President of the United States, I know I heard this a few weeks ago, actually mentioned the fact, and this is the first time I've heard a president actually mention the fact that the cannabis laws in the United States are a little screwed up, let's just say. And he has tried again to live up to his campaign promises and also start that ball rolling of descheduling. And I believe the Secretary of Health and Human Services has already started to look into the descheduling of cannabis. He did, quote unquote, let 6,500 federally guilty people who had possession crimes of cannabis free. Now, a lot of people in the industry say he didn't do enough. That's an easy thing to poke at, obviously, because I think everyone in the industry and 70% of our populace now wants this plant legalized. Jeanne, first of all, I need to get your reaction to what President Biden did and said a few weeks ago.
So let me give you the inside baseball on that one, Jimmy.
Okay.
There is a very hardcore group, and Steve D'Angelo, one of the wonderful OGs and pioneer and co-founder of Arcview. I was with them the other night at a wonderful dinner party right here in New York City. There's a really strong group of advocates that really did behind the scenes force Biden to say all that when he said it, but they're still upset because it hasn't gone far enough. There's still thousands of people in our jails and prisons. And so we want Biden to live up to his campaign promises. But here's kind of the sad story. And look, I want our president to prevail on this issue. I want change. I so want safe banking. Heck, I want federal legalization. But the sad truth is that there's a lot of constituencies that don't want that and have been the primary funders of people like Chuck Schumer, our very senator here in New York, who's been, has a bill, to reform cannabis regulation and legalization, and Biden, who's been openly against, he's been against this whole issue for years. So finally, he is at least saying these things. Now, here's what to pay attention to. What scares those of us who so want this to happen is he used the word scheduling. Notice you use the word descheduling. That's what we want. But he didn't use that word. So what scares us is he thinking about rescheduling? If he reschedules to Schedule 2, guess who has Schedule 2 licenses? Big Pharma.
Right.
But if he does reschedule to Schedule 3, that does mean it's more open, and 280E, that draconian tax law, terrible tax law, that doesn't even allow you to deduct ordinary and reasonable business expenses, that would go away under Schedule 3. Having said that, I want to be clear. We want it descheduled. Let fair markets and free markets prevail.
Absolutely. And Josh, I know you're very well versed on all this, being from Washington State now anyway. Walk us through what you think the Washington State's process and how have they actually learned anything along the way of being one of the first states to legalize?
I think they learned how to do it wrong. There was that misconception I think a lot of people have where it's like, let's just push this through and then we'll fix it. And then a decade goes by and you're like, oh, wait, we haven't fixed it yet. I was naive about the Class C felony on maintaining and operating a cannabis lounge. That was half a decade ago. And we haven't made any progress on that at all, even though I wrote the bill in 2019, but then COVID has stalled that. So while we wait for delivery and while we wait for, all of these other things, we still have one of the highest taxes out there, one of the most competitive marketplaces, but they're slowly working its way out now as we all try to work together rather than against each other.
So is that the lesson we learned? It's better to work together and learn from the mistakes from the past of perhaps the first couple of states. I mean, did Colorado get it more right than Washington State?
I don't know. I mean, they have vertically integrated opportunities. They have the ability to have outside investment capital. They have all of these other things that we don't have. So I think, we can learn from that and change that a bit. But there's so many other things like social equity and, cafes and delivery. And I mean, the list goes on for what we need here.
Well, let's talk about that because we're going to have on our stage the two architects. And of course, it's two powerful, smart women who were the architects of what's called the MRTA statute, which is the statute for New York State that legalizes adult use regulation. That happened on March 31st, a year ago, so in 2021. Now note, the regulations are not out yet, so we're waiting for that, which will refine and define the statute. And we're anxiously waiting for that. But you know what? To do it right, it's complicated. It takes time. It takes a staff of people. And they really just appointed that team over the last several months. I'm sure you know the name Tremaine Wright. She is the chairman of what's called the OCB. And then Chris Alexander, he's the executive director. Now, we want all this to happen yesterday, but it does take time. I think people are patient about that. Now, here's what's up, though, that is exciting. Of course, to what you both said, can't these states learn from each other? I'm hopeful because I'm proud and a long time, New Yorker. I want our program to be one of the best of all. We were the 19th state to adopt adult use regulation. Why not learn? Here's a few things we did do right in the statute. We're the only state that has in the statute social consumption lounges. So you see how Nevada and other states have had to fight for that legislatively. It's built into the statute. Why not? New York's a great, nightlife town and social consumption kind of place with other libations. So we do see this. We had a great conference last year in the Rainbow Room. Why not go to the Rainbow Room, have a beautiful dinner, and have your canned drink or a delicious, cannabis beverage there? So that's built in. Another thing they built in, to your point, Josh, is social equity focus. So they did something that no other state has done. They said, okay, if you have a certain conviction and other business acumen that you can show us, we're going to let 150 applicants, it's called CARD, the acronym is CAURD, pronounced CARD, stands for Conditional Adult Use Recreational Dispensary License. They're going to go to the front of the line. That deadline's already passed. 904 applications were submitted, and 150 are going to be picked. Then, and they're ahead of everybody. The regular portal for everybody else has not even been issued yet. So they're at the front of the line. They are going to await being selected based on what they put in their application. And then listen to this, very unusual. Again, the only state that's done this. the state is going to provide the lease for these 150 dispensaries. So they will have to pay for the lease, but the state's going to acquire them. Then they can decorate it however they want. So put some personal touch on it, but it's going to be turnkey. The software, the infrastructure, and that sort of thing is going to be provided. So the applicant, the license holder, will have to raise some money, but not the millions and millions that's typically needed for a dispensary. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's amazing, and I think it's also fair and about time and all those things. But I got to tell you something, and Josh, I'm interested to get your feeling on this too. In Massachusetts, and I now just found out in New York, private events are okay for consumption. The weekend that I just enjoyed in Boxborough, Massachusetts, was a private event where the producers and organizers took over the Boxborough Regency Hotel, and there was open consumption. There was no alcohol allowed. Everybody was wearing a plus 21 bracelet. It was very well handled, and there was no big deal about it at all. In fact, the police enjoy cannabis events because you don't get as rowdy on the product as you might on alcohol. And that being said, in New York City a few weeks ago, I went to the Medley Supper Club. Now, Jeanne, have you ever been there or heard about this place?
Not yet, but they're one of the speakers at our event, so I understand who they are.
That was a great experience, okay? First of all, I was amazed, that it was open consumption. There was a pre-roll at my plate when I arrived at my dinner seat. There was open consumption indoors. It was a beautiful, I think it was a 5-course meal. It was outstanding food, no alcohol, mocktails that were also infused with cannabinoids. And again, I didn't hear of any incidents. I think everybody had a great time. It was networking at its best. And it was in the heart of New York City. So to me, and Josh, I know you're working on this, to me, the social club exists. It's just not public yet.
Well, let me give you a great nuance. Yesterday, I listened to 10 companies pitch because I often am involved in these pitch fests. And this woman was pitching in Colorado that you can't even consume in the public. In the statute, guess what they did here, which is so brilliant? You can smoke or use cannabis anywhere you can smoke or use cigarettes.
Right.
And in these private, now many hotels will not allow that even here. But if you're on the sidewalk or on the rooftop in a home or whatever, yes, consumption is totally legal. So this is thrilling to some old timers. Steve D'Angelo said he delights in walking down the street smoking a joint because it's the first time he could do it legally. So again, there's some brilliance to this statute. The 2 women who designed this are on our stage this next week. And hey, this is great. We like this because why should you be in Colorado where you're not even allowed to light up? And so thus causing all kinds of issues. So yes, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, I know you're involved with making some changes in Washington State. Why don't you give us an update on what's going on?
Yeah. Well, I ended up reviewing a bunch of bills, 11 different states. New York, we reviewed it was later on after 2019 when we submitted it, but they did have some good stuff in there. Like Jeanne mentioned, Washington has got some support at the House Rep level. House Rep Kloba, Shelley Kloba, is interested in helping us to kind of push this and allow for the consumption to open up. And hopefully that'll also include social equity, help small businesses, allow for medical patients, and small business growth. All of those things should benefit as a result.
One of the things that it seems to be consistent about this issue, and here in Massachusetts, they still have not opened up any official public social consumption lounges. I believe they've moved forward on it, past some of the regulations, and now they're looking at licensees and maybe doing some experimental one-day licenses out there for different events, like the one I was just in attendance at Boxborough, Massachusetts. But they're still dragging their feet a little bit. I think they're really afraid of, first of all, mixing alcohol and cannabis is not a good thing. I just want to say
not a good thing.
It's not a good. It's an 8 time if you walk into a bar under the influence of cannabis and have a sip of a drink, you're now going to be 8 times as intoxicated.
You're blotted.
Right. And you do not want to get behind the wheel of a car at that point. Okay. Again, I'm really big on responsible use of both products, certainly. I think that's been drilled in our heads now, thanks to Mothers Against Drunk Driving and that whole initiative. But now, as we all know, there's still a lot of fear about people operating under the influence of cannabis. And I want to get your feelings about this, because I'm not saying that I'm saying that if you have too much of it, don't get behind the wheel of a car. However, there are some people that have been driving under the influence of cannabis since the 60s. I remember the front plates that used to say "Arrive Stoned." Does anybody in here? Oh, Jeanne, you do remember. Do you remember?
No, that's not my thing.
Well, it wasn't my thing either, but because I was 10 years old. But I do remember the front plates "Arrive Stoned" on a license plate, on a car license plate. And I just don't know, is that what's holding it back more than anything else? Is that people's fear of this?
People are afraid of this, and it's a legitimate concern. And of course, balance, appropriate use is critical for people to understand that. And the other thing that's related, we need to have more knowledge. We need to understand efficacy. We need to understand tolerances and what people can take. Listen, I've gotten myself in trouble by not understanding how much THC was in something. And so everybody reacts differently. And yeah, we don't want people, killing people and running down people by we're doing it, or feeling lousy, by taking too much. Yes, I agree. I have a few funky pictures of people that I'm married to who managed to have a few scotches and then smoked a joint. And yeah, it's not a good thing. It's not pretty.
That's also a major headwind, is the lobbyists for drunk driving and Clean Air Indoor Act. So employees trying to, that you can't be in a smoky environment and then drunk driving. But the reality is what we're seeing is a decrease in DUIs across all regulated states, a decrease in consumption of alcohol, taxes of cannabis taking over taxes of alcohol.
Correct.
So I think the fear is greater than the reality. But they're fearful of the unknown. Once you open up this establishment, you can't really take that back, and I don't think they want to release that yet. And so there's a lot of headwinds. But once we can push through that fear of drunk driving, I think we can make some serious headwinds.
You're right to address that. And so, being a longtime investor, I've had my binoculars on, looking for products that could help, mitigate this problem. But believe it or not, and I've seen every product that's out there that, let's say, lawmakers or police departments could buy or use. But guess what? There's a variety of form factors, from measuring breath to measuring blood to measuring, attention span, and none of them have really gotten traction. They're expensive, they're kludgy, and it's a problem. But that is one way that lawmakers think that they could help the problem. But the problem there's not been a good technology solution.
It's education and research.
Correct.
This is what needs to be emphasized in this industry, I believe, so that we can learn, because it does affect everybody differently. I mean, I know people that are in their 30s that are taking like 100 milligrams of THC a day and functioning. Now, there's also something called a functioning alcoholic. That being said, the point is everybody in everybody is different, and it affects everybody differently. And those that take it medicinally, including oncologists, doctors who want to help their cancer patients out, and they are frustrated because they're limited, even in legal states, of a 5 milligram serving in any a beverage, for instance. So there's so much education that still needs to be done.
Let's stay on this, because here's a relevant fact that relates to what you just said. Even CBD now, many tinctures and gummies and all have enough THC in it to really get somebody buzzed. And now you can walk into any CBD store and buy a Delta 8 product. And let me tell you something. If our teenage kids and other people got a hold of it unknowingly, it really does do a number. So the education, the labeling is critical, and we need more of that. So yeah, important.
And you would like to see, there are some states that have banned Delta 8, especially legal adult use states in the United States. Would you like to see a ban on Delta 8?
No, I can't say I would, but I do want good labeling. And I
Yep.
want good knowledge. So listen to this. I was just with a major distributor who's in California, the #1 distributor. And he said this product called Wonder, which is a terrific Delta 8 drink. I've tasted it, is the #1 leading beverage next to Can. I'm sure you've heard of CANN.
Yep.
And it's the #1 low seltzer, low dose THC drink. It's delicious in a variety of tastes. But Wonder is right behind it. And I know Alexei, the CEO, he's just a dynamic CEO. And I don't want that product off the shelf. I want it on the shelf, but I want people to know. And I've walked into these CBD stores, bought a gummy, Delta 8 gummy with 25 milligrams of Delta 8. And it's really much too powerful.
Right. I agree.
And teenagers and kids can walk in and buy that.
That's right. And again,
So I'm against that, but I want to see some possible age requirements now on that.
absolutely 100%. Jeanne Sullivan from Arcview, you give us another plug about the big investment summit coming up in New York City, and tell us a little bit how people can find out about more, because I've been on your website. It's all over your website.
Yes. Well, we're thrilled to be back live because people want to get together, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And although we used to be the only game in town, we're not, but that's okay, because guess what? More and more net new people have awakened to, hey, how do I invest in this industry? What should I invest in? Where are the great companies or CEOs? So we're thrilled to bring that together along with a number of terrific thought leaders. And that's what's going to happen starting Wednesday night in New York City, starting with a big fun reception. Steve D'Angelo and Troy Dayton will be there. And we're going to have a big fun gathering. It's at a terrific event space called Convene at 45th and Park. And we welcome people to come. And then all day Thursday, which is October 20th, we have a rich set of sessions. I've already mentioned the two architects of the MRTA, which is our New York statute. So Senator Liz Kruger, State Senator Liz Kruger, and the chairman of the New York State Assembly, Crystal Peoples-Stokes. These two women fought for years to create this bill and got it passed. So they're on stage with a terrific reporter as moderator. And then we've got several more very interesting sessions all lined up, fast-paced and interesting, never boring. And then we've done something very, very cool. We have brought together many, many institutional investors who are active investing in cannabis companies. And we put them on stage. We're calling it a reverse pitch. So they're standing, hey, I'm from EEC. I'm Matt Hawkins, the founder of Entourage Effect Capital. And here's my fund, and here's what I'm looking for. And I want to meet you if you fit our metrics. And so entrepreneurs, attendees, other investors can meet about 15 of these investors. We're thrilled for that. Then the next morning, we're having an Ask Me Anything. So again, the investors are in the room and the audience is able to ask away, hey, do I have to have an NDA? Is this something you're looking for? How do I get a meeting with you? That kind of question. And then Friday afternoon, from Friday late morning, we have 9 really great companies doing a short pitch and, mingling with the attendees. So we're just thrilled to be back and present this kind of collection of people and thought leaders.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there and I appreciate it. I just sent the link to Jeff Finkel. He'll be joining us as soon as he deplanes. So Jeanne Sullivan from Arcview Group, best of luck this week. I look forward to seeing you in 3 dimensions. You know, this Zoom thing, I'm tired of it. I like seeing people with depth perception, if you will.
Great fun. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jeanne.
Delighted to be here.
You bet. And we'll be back with more, including a really cool panel coming up next. Don't go away.
With that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is The Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.
Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.
Thanks for listening to today's show. To check out more great cannabis podcasts, go to podconnects.com. Here's a preview of one of our other shows.
Infused, a cannabis talk show, is a one-of-a-kind look inside the cannabis industry. Meet the amazing people who make cannabis businesses bloom as they join host Nick with Francesca and Mike for creative cannabis conversations. Get an honest look at the business of cannabis, including trends, best and worst practices, products, education, and advocacy. Whether you're canna curious or running a cannabis, Infused has canna conversations that count. Infused is available on YouTube and is now streaming as part of the PodConnects network.